Hello and welcome to the CSO PD On Demand video, Understanding the NWEA Class Profile Report. I would like to first mention that all of the NWEA teacher reports are interconnected. This means that you can click on student information in one report and drill down for more specific data regarding that individual student. It is important to note when you are on the NWEA website that in the top right corner you will always see a help link as denoted on your screen by the red arrow. The NWEA help feature is a responsive help feature. And what this means is when you click help, it will take you to specific information and resource sources for the current section you are in on your screen. For example, if you are in the class profile report and you click help, it will give you specific help information regarding the class profile report. The same is true for each other report in NWEA, as well as proctoring the assessment. If you are on the proctor screen and you click help, it will give you help information and resources specific to proctoring the assessment. If you have been around and been using NWEA reports for the last several years, you will notice some significant changes to the class profile report for the 24-25 school year and beyond. This includes an updated layout, updated and simplified tab names, adding the ability to see non-growth event data. And what I mean by that is tests where the students do not get a RIT score or a growth projection. And they have added students grouped by instructional areas scores histogram. If you are new to NWEA, none of this will make sense, and you will only be familiar with the new and updated report. The class profile report has two tabs with data that you can view. Before summer of 2024, tab 1 was achievement details, tab 2 test details. The updated report for the 24-25 school year and beyond has tab 1 being called test details and tab 2 being called instructional areas. Here is a better visualization of what the tabs look like as you are looking at the class profile. If you are a teacher who teaches one course, the system will default to your name as the instructor and your class as the homeroom class that was rostered to you for testing. You will also have the ability to switch reports based on subject. If you are a teacher who teaches multiple subjects, you will have various classes listed under your class drop-down menu. And if you are a principal or a PLT lead, you will see all teachers listed under the instructor drop-down and all classes and subjects listed under their subsequent drop-down menus. You can see again, before summer of 24, the tab names were achievement details and test details. They have switched the order of these tabs, so they have moved test details to be tab number 1 and changed the achievement details tab to instructional areas. We are first going to look at the test details tab. The first thing you will notice in your test details tab is a pie chart entitled RIT Score Status. This will give you a quick at-a-glance information about how many students in your class have successfully completed an assessment and received an official RIT score. Those students will be designated by the blue color. Designated by the gray color, you will see something called Other in a list of the number of students. If you have students who appear in a gray color, this means that they did not successfully complete the assessment to obtain a RIT score. This could be for a variety of reasons. It could be that they have an unofficial RIT score. This could be due to taking the incorrect assessment. Along with the MAP growth assessments, NWEA offers a variety of screening assessments as well that do not count a RIT score for each of the 3 testing benchmarks of fall, winter, and spring. Students could have an invalid test result, which means for whatever reason, the system did not register their testing information to produce valid results. In the case of an invalid test, students should be retested. This could also be because students were absent and did not have the test made up when they returned to school. It could also be that there is simply no test data. It could be that the test was paused and not restarted. The test was suspended either by the student, by the proctor, or by the fact that they were flagged multiple times for rapid guessing, and the proctor did not resume the test for the student. The test could have been terminated. This could be due to technical issues with their device. They got logged out of the website for the student assessment portion, or the proctor terminated the test for a variety of reasons, or that the student was assigned the assessment and has not started the assessment. The moral of the story is, during a testing window, you want to ensure that all of your students are listed under the blue color with an official RIT score. I will also add here, if your students have a valid RIT score and they are going to be retested, this could be due to having a RIT score that is far below their capabilities. This could be due to the student being absent and feeling unwell and taking the assessment, and the teacher or the administrator realizing they didn't do well and they need to retest. Please let the Catholic Schools Office know if you are retesting a student so that I can ensure that the original test is invalidated and does not show up on reports. If the CSO is not notified of this, only the original assessment data will be shown in the reports, and the retest will not be shown. Again, we're on the Test Details tab. If we scroll down, you will get to some at-a-glance data. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see some national comparisons. The NWEA assessment is a norm-referenced test, and what this means is data from hundreds of thousands of students in the same grade level at the same time who have taken the same test have their data compared. And NWEA uses what's called norm referencing to assign a minimum RIT score based on the data and the specific grade level. So on the right-hand side, you will see students compared against that national norming data. This teacher in question has 2 grade levels, or a combined class of multiple grade levels, and that is why you see grade 4 with 3 students in this example and grade 5 with 7 students. So for grade 4, it gives the class average RIT score. So it takes all of the students who were assessed in this class, in this grade level, and averages their RIT scores. In this case, we have an average RIT score of a 213.7 and a median percentile at the 71st percentile for achievement. Please keep in mind that this is a shift. NWEA data now looks at the median or the middle of the road percentile. While you may see as a class your students rank in the 71st percentile in this example, please keep in mind that that still means that half of the students are above the 71st percentile and half the students are below the 71st percentile. In this grade 4 example, it also states the average score of your 4th grade students is above the national average of a 197. So in all these hundreds of thousands of students and this norming data that's being compared, this grade level is above that national average RIT score. Same information is presented below for grade 5 and those 7 students. Again, they have a class average of a 199.3. And the average score of the students is above the national average of a 204. The median percentile for grade 5 is the 38th percentile. Again, keep in mind that median is middle of the road, and half the students in this 5th grade class are above the 38th percentile, and half are below. And if you pay attention and you notice, I actually see a discrepancy in this example data. So a 199.3 is not above the national average of a 204, which is why the median percentile is so low. So I apologize for that error. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see achievement percentiles. So NWEA ranks students by achievement percentiles. You will see in the graph that the blue color is the 80th percentile in achievement and above, and there is 1 student. The green color is the 61st to the 80th percentile in achievement. There are 2 students. The yellow color is the 41st to the 60th percentile, and there are 3 students. The peach color is the 21st through the 40th percentile, and in this case there are 2 students. And the red color is the 21st percentile and below. You will notice at the top it says that 10 students have testing and have a score out of 11. So there is 1 student that doesn't have a valid score for whatever reason. You will notice the blue links. There is one under achievement percentiles at the top under those 10 students that says learn more about this data and test scores. And you will notice at the bottom of each of these sets of data there is a link that states more information about this chart. You can click on these links and they will bring up a pop-up that will explain the different percentile bands. It'll explain the definitions of a median percentile, a class average, a RIT score. So there is embedded information to help you understand the data that you are seeing. If we're back to looking at those achievement percentiles, under where it says 10 students have tested, you will see in bold that most students are below the mean or the average of the 50th percentile. So it gives you those quick at-a-glance data points. You will also notice in the bottom right of each of these sets of data, it will show the term that was rostered and the term that was tested. Typically, for looking at 1 benchmark window worth of data, you want the students rostered and tested in the same window for the same year. In this case, spring 21-22. You can choose to go back and look at past years of data for the group of students. So please make sure at the top of the class profile report, when you are selecting your class, ensure that you have the current data that you would like to look at. If we're scrolling down on this test details tab in the report, you will see a chart that shows test details by student. This will correspond with that gray and blue pie chart that we looked at the top of the screen. On the left-hand side, it will list each of your students in this class. It will list their grade level, their achievement percentile, their overall RIT score for the assessment. In this case, this is data for a reading assessment, so you will have a Lexile level. If it is math data, you will have a quantile level. SEM, next to that, is the standard error of measure. This will be a number that has a plus minus in front of it. What the standard error of measure means is that if this same student retook the assessment in the same testing window, they are likely to score above or below a certain number of RIT points. So if we look at the first student, Lewis Watkins, his standard error of measure is plus or minus 3. Now he had an overall RIT score in this reading assessment of 177. So if Lewis took this test over again, the data is indicating that he could score up to 3 points above or 3 points below the current RIT score that he has for this assessment. Next to the SEM is the test duration. This will show how long the student spent on this particular assessment. This can be important to look at if you have a student whose current level does not match past performances or what the teacher knows the student is capable of. This can be used in conjunction with the data next to it that is called rapid guessing percentage. I will say that I have seen students rapid guess on assessments and not be flagged for rapid guessing. So I would suggest using a combination of the test duration and if there is a rapid guessing percentage. In this case, Lewis is flagged as having 35% probability of rapid guessing on this assessment. He would be one that would qualify for retesting based on his achievement percentile and RIT score. But again, it will depend on past assessment performance and teacher and principal discretion. What rapid guessing means is that a student has clicked through the answers on the assessments at a rapid enough pace that an algorithm has flagged the student as not spending enough time and giving their best effort on the assessment. You will see that it has a red triangle next to it, and this indicates rapid guessing on greater than 30% of the assessment questions and should very much qualify to be retested. Next to rapid guessing is the test name. This indicates the assessment that the student took. You will notice that all students in this example took reading 2 to 5. If we look at Alicia Carlin, who is the second student up from the bottom, you will see that under her reading 2 to 5 assessment, it says accessible. This means that some type of accommodation was put in place for this assessment for this particular student. It could be that they have an equitable participation plan. It could be that the student receives Title and Act services, but there were some accommodations put in place. Next to that information is the test date. This is the date in which the student completed the assessment. You will see at the bottom, starting with Jason Wood, there are no assessment data details, and it indicates that the students below have not completed a successful assessment and have a valid RIT score. For Jason Wood, there are no test data available, and this could be because the test was paused, suspended, terminated, or not started. Shelley down below has an invalid test because the duration of the test was too short. So to me, it sounds like the test was started and then she got logged out somehow and didn't complete the assessment. Odell has an unofficial RIT score. So there was a mistake with Odell, and he was assigned a screening test instead of a map growth test. So he has no valid RIT score. And Keith Collins was assessed outside the testing window, and so he has no valid testing data. It's very important to adhere to the testing window that is distributed by the Catholic Schools Office. Again, because once the window is closed, students would be able to test, but there would be no valid information for use by the teacher. Should you run into any testing issues during a testing window, please have your principal reach out to the Catholic Schools Office so we can try to work out a way for the student to take the assessment and for the teacher to have valid testing data to use to make instructional decisions. We are next going to look at the Instructional Areas tab, again previously called Test Details. The data points that we will look at for the Instructional Areas tab are involving math for grades 2 to 5. The Instructional Areas tab will first break down each instructional area that was assessed and give an overall percentile, representation based on the color bands, and also an achievement percentile, which is in the oval shape next to the percentile bands. So on the left-hand side, we have the instructional areas. So the items that are assessed for grades 2 to 5 in math are geometry, operations and algebraic thinking, statistics and probability, and the real and complex number system. You will see that all instructional areas, the combined 7 students in this class, are at the achievement percentile of the 41st through the 60th, which indicates the yellow color. So for geometry, they have an achievement percentile of the 46th, operations and algebraic thinking the 48th, statistics and probability the 52nd, and the real and complex number systems the 53rd. To the right next to that, students are distributed by the percentile color bands. So 14% of the students are in the 31st through the 20th, 28% the 21st through the 40th, 28% of the students in the yellow color, the 41st through the 60th. There are no students in the green band for geometry, and then 80% and higher is the blue band. You will notice that the instructional areas are color-coded in blue. Anytime you see blue text, that means there is something to click on. If you click on each of these instructional areas, it will bring up the roster of students and give you drilled down information for each specific student in this class roster. Again, if you click on more information about this chart under that percentile key, it will give you an explanation of this chart. This chart is great for a high-level overview of how the class performed across specific instructional areas. If students did very poorly in one or more of these areas, the teacher can assume that they need to maybe go back and reteach because there was a lack of mastery, or maybe there was an issue with mastery for 1 or 2 students. Again, this is instructional area distributed across given quintiles, which are the color bands. And it can really be used to gain a deeper understanding of the strengths and opportunity areas for instruction for this entire class. It can be used to inform formative assessments and the needs for scaffolding or support during instruction. If we scroll down to the next area, under the Instructional Areas tab, you will see students grouped by instructional area scores. You will see that there is a drop-down menu entitled Instructional Area. This can be used to look individually at each of the instructional areas for a given assessment. This example is looking at geometry as an instructional area. You will see that students are grouped by 10-point RIT bands. So you will see Lewis Watkins, he's grouped in the 10-point RIT band of a 180 to a 189. Virginia Scott is grouped into the 10-point RIT band of a 190 to a 200. Alfred Gordon and Kelly Kennedy are grouped into the 200 to 210 RIT band range, and that's the median RIT band for the class. And then we have 3 students in the 211 to 220 RIT band. If you click on the blue names for these students, that will automatically link and take you to their individual student profile report. If you click on the groups of students on the 10-point RIT band, it will highlight that area and give you the ability to click on this link that says View Standards for this instructional area in the learning continuum. We will look at the learning continuum in a few more slides, but this can be very helpful in looking at what these students in these specific groups are ready to learn, what extensions can be used, or what remediation needs to be taken based on their RIT scores. These groupings of students can be used for small group instruction and differentiated approaches to instruction, and alleviates the need for the teacher to have to group them by themselves. This also gives you a quick view of the standard deviation or the standard error of the class. The more spread out the students are, the more varying abilities you have in the class and the greater need for differentiation. If you see students grouped into a few groups, then you know that all of the students are achieving around the same instructional level, and less differentiation may be needed in some of the instructional areas. So I mentioned the learning continuum, so you can click on those groups of students, or you can go to the learning continuum as a separate report. So this is the information. I have kept saying that the blue text under each chart says more information. This is the information that you will get if you click on that blue text. So this is talking about that instructional grouping chart. It tells you about the chart, so it tells you that the students are grouped by performance, organized into 10-point RIT bands. Each stack represents students who scored within that band, and you can use the data as a starting point for forming temporary flexible learning groups in your classroom. It gives you the definition of a RIT band. It gives you a link for the Learning Continuum report. And it also gives you a link to the Help Center for the Class Profile Report. If I were in, let me back up for a moment. If I were in this grouping and I clicked on a group of students and clicked on the Learning Continuum, it would specifically take me to the portion of the report that deals with that specific 10-point RIT band. So highlighted in blue is Alfred Gordon and Kelly Kennedy. If I were to click on the Learning Continuum report, it would take me to the information pertaining to that 10-point RIT band of a 200 to a 210. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to click on this Learning Continuum link, and it's going to show us what it looks like if you go to the separate Learning Continuum report. And so we will have to pick a subject and in some instructional areas and look at all of the 10-point RIT bands. But just know that you can pinpoint in this report as well. So this is the main login screen for NWEA. Please know that your username is your school email address. So it's going to ask me to log in. If you're already logged into the NWEA platform, it will not ask you to log in a second time. So this is what the learning continuum looks like if you go just to this specific report and not connected to any of the other reports. So at this point, we will need to select a test. Since we're looking at Math 2 to 5, I'm going to select the Math 2 to 5 assessment. I can select a specific grade level. So we're going to say I teach grade number 2. You will see also up here, I can choose to look at these 10-point RIT bands by standard. So it will give the specific PA state standard that it is working with. Or I can group by topic. If you see that there are no statements or no standards, if you are in the class profile report, this could mean that you have no students grouped in that particular RIT band. If you are in the Learning Continuum report by itself, this means that there may be no assessment criteria for this level of RIT band, since this is a below grade level RIT band. So I'm going to use these arrows on the right and left, and I'm going to go up a few 10-point RIT bands. So you will see these quick links. I have the ability to move to a specific tested area. So I could click geometry and it will scroll down to geometry, or I can scroll through it on my own and see each of these tested domains. So for example, we're in geometry, we're looking by topic. So the first thing I see, if I have students in this 10-point RIT band of a 181 to a 190, is reason with shapes, attributes, and coordinate plane. And it will give me learning statements. So for coordinate geometry, interprets points with whole number coordinates in the first quadrant within a given context. We move on to fractions and so on. I can come up here at any time and change the grouping to be by standard. And if I go back to geometry, so that same reason with shapes, attributes, and coordinate plane, it's going to give me the PA state standard that deals with that. Analyze and draw 2- and 3-dimensional shapes having specified attributes. And then it will give me some more specifics. Is the student able to identify the number of faces, edges, or vertices for a 3D object? Are they able to identify the number of sides or corners of a 2D object? And so on. I can go back up at any time and pick a different grade level. I can also go to the test drop-down and select a different assessment. And again, the navigation is the same. It will give a chart that looks vaguely familiar from the Test Details tab, except we get some expanded data on these instructional areas. So we have the same group of students. It lists their grade level, their overall RIT score on their math assessment, their achievement percentile with percentile color band, and then it gives a separate RIT score for each of these instructional areas. This can be used to quickly pinpoint where students are struggling and where they need additional support. Again, we discussed that students listed with no valid RIT score, it is important to look at why they don't have a RIT score and to get that remediated so that they have valid testing data. Again, you can click on each of these students' names that are in blue and it will take you to the student profile report, or you can click on their achievement percentile. With any of these charts, you have the ability to sort the data by student name, by RIT score, highest to lowest or lowest to highest, by achievement percentile, highest to lowest, lowest to highest, or by any of the instructional areas. So for example, let's look at Lewis Watkins again. He got a 178 overall on his math assessment for the spring term. He is in the first achievement percentile. If we look at the instructional area RIT scores, we can see that he scored very high with a 186 in the real and complex numbers system, a 180 in geometry, and a 180 in numbers and algebraic thinking. He only scored a 176 in statistics and probability. So as a classroom teacher in math or dealing with remediation, I can look at these RIT scores by instructional area and determine that the greatest need of focus for Lewis is in statistics and probability, followed by geometry and operations and algebraic thinking. However, being in the first percentile, that doesn't mean that he won't need additional help in real numbers and complex number systems, even though he got a 186. And for students like Lewis, it is important to look at their historic testing data over time to determine if this is at the student's capacity or if this is an anomaly in their testing data and they should be retested.